Good afternoon. Welcome to the Town of Kirkland Lake Finance meeting of June the 19th, 2018, commencing at 4:40 p.m. Approval of the agenda.
It's moved by Councillor Morgan, seconded by Councillor Mino. The Council approves the agenda for its finance meeting of June 19th, 2018 as presented.
All in favor? Unanimous. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? None declared. Petitions and delegations? None. Reports of municipal officers and communication. Acting CAO, Wolf.
Thank you, sir. At the last meeting, staff was directed to explore what the implications would be for a modification to the commercial tax rate. This has been done, and it does have a significant impact on the distribution of the tax burden. I defer to Ryan Dagelman for an explanation.
Good evening, everyone. I'm presenting council with three different options for the distribution of the $10 million levy that's been discussed. Please keep in mind that the levy change being discussed here includes total change by adding both the municipal levy and the education levy together to give a more accurate picture of what will be sent on individual tax bills. So option one is the original revenue neutral option that council has been presented with at the last couple of meetings. Revenue neutral, again, meaning that the distribution of the levy between classes remains similar to the distribution set in 2017. In this scenario of the additional levy required, the residential class will pay about $450,000 or 72% of the increase with an average dollar increase per property of $125. Both multi-res and the industrial class will see about $33,000 or 5% increase each. Commercial, $96,000 or 16%, and pipeline at about $9,400 or 2% of the total increase. Moving on to option two, shows what the distribution would look like by providing the commercial and industrial class with a 0% levy increase. This option will on average give individual commercial and industrial properties a small reduction in levy, but consequently shifts the increase onto the other three classes. The residential class would pick up the majority of this increase by taking on an extra $117,000 in levy, picking up about 91% of the total increase for an average increase of about $157 per property. Multi-residential and pipeline would also see a slight increase from option one. I also wanted to provide option three to try to meet somewhere in the middle of the revenue neutral option and the 0% increase to commercial and the industrial. This option would again still lower the commercial and industrial class distribution to about 10% and 3% respectively, but again shift the remaining burden onto the other three classes. However, instead of the residential class taking on an extra $117,000 from option one, it would increase about $48,000 or take on 80% of that levy change instead of the 91% for an average increase of $138 per property. Multi-res would pick up 6% and pipeline 1%. So as discussed in previous meetings, because of Kirkland Lake's overall assessment distribution having about 80% of our assessment base in the residential class, any ratio reduction for another class shifts that burden onto the residential class as it is the benchmark. I would also like to remind council, staff, and the public that the numbers we are showing here are total levy changes and averages. How these increases affect individual tax bills will differ from property to property, as depending on your individual assessment in 2018. Some properties could see a larger increase than average, while others could see lower or no increase at all. Even though each property pays the same tax rate as other properties within its class, each property's individual property assessment differs and thus creates a different dollar amount owing on each tax bill. So that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you now.
Councillor Morgan.
Thanks very much, Ryan. This is very, very helpful. I'm one of the people who asked for these options. Two things. One, I know that historically for the last probably two terms, we've been encouraged by the province to adjust the commercial rate closer to I forget the term you use, but the sort of provincial norm, if you
Yes.
will. So that is still there, right? Like we haven't met that goal yet, and we're still encouraged to continue to do that, right?
That's
By the
right. We haven't
province.
met that goal, but what happens every year as we reduce that ratio, the province doesn't allow you to increase it again. So once you start to lower it, you can keep lowering it, but you can't increase it any further. So we are continuing on that path of trying to decrease it, but no, we haven't met the province. And again, it has more to do with our assessment base
Right.
than anything preventing us from getting there.
And that was really leading to my second comment, was that commercial and industrial, we don't have the numbers, I don't think, in front of us, but we are seeing some significant increase in the assessment of those two areas. So even if we do lower the rate this year, we will be seeing significant tax increases from those categories because of the increase in building and assessment that's already happened and that's coming down the pipe. So that's what gives me additional comfort to recommend or to certainly suggest that we do accept one of these other options and not unduly burden the commercial and industrial sectors, and in fact move closer to that provincial norm. So I'm certainly okay with option 1 or 2 or 3, and I would certainly be comfortable with option 3 if that's what the other councillors decide. But that's, I'm the advocate for this, and I'm glad you brought these numbers back. You've done it very succinctly here. I'm not particularly interested in the education portion of this, because we can only deal with the municipal tax portion of this. I mean, but be that as it may. Thank you.
Yeah, you're correct. And I thought it was only fair to include the education just for everyone to be able to see what's actually going to come on their bill, because most people, generally don't recognize the two as separate because it comes on a single bill for them. So that's more what I was hoping to portray with this information.
Forgot my name.
Okay. Jean-Guy?
Thanks, Ryan. Well done also. Do you know the assessment from last year to this year, how much it went up? The residential only.
I don't have those numbers. I have the numbers of what our assessment is for 2018, but I'm not sure as compared to last year. I don't have those numbers in front
Because
of me.
this also went up, so it's 8% not of last year's number, it's 8% of the new number. So really, the 8% might be more like 10% or 11 or 12%. Like, we don't know.
Sorry, are you talking about the levy change percentage?
Assessment.
Or the
If
assessment
somebody has a
overall.
house worth 400,000, so we now say, okay, 8% of 400,000, but it's not 400,000 anymore, it's 440,000. So now they pay more than 8%, it'll be 8% of 440, which might be 12%. So I think the tax are
That's right.
really high this year, like 7% for me is more than I thought. Option 1 is more than I think I would approve, but I think the way we are, we have to stay there, but it's hard for us to judge. We don't know what people is happening at their house. And I know some of them are telling me that their house has been assessed higher every year for the last, and I think it's till 2019, or? Right? This is the last year?
So last year was the first year of the
Yeah.
new assessment. So now if anyone has an increase in assessment, it will phase in equally over the next 4 years
Yeah.
until 2020, I believe.
So, I thought it was 19, okay, maybe 20. So it goes up already. So I know Tyler said that the same thing is true commercial, but it's also true residential. I don't think we should try to raise 10, 11, 12% on the people's taxes. I mean, that's a big amount.
And that's why I
And
wanted
I'm
to
surprised
mention.
people are not crying more about this, really, because for me, I thought that's 7%. I know we have no choice almost, but we have to live with it. I was hoping more 5 or 6 maximum. When Peter was mentioning 24, I said, Peter, 6 would be probably the most I could even approve. 7 is not bad. I know it's 6 average, but residential is 7, and that's what the number I'm looking at. If we go with I think 2 was 9%, and 3 was 8%, so which is this is more than, this is too much really for me. And that's only residential I'm talking about. And your numbers are quite easy to read, so thank you very much.
And that's why I wanted to mention that last paragraph where, you know, I don't want people to see that average dollar increase and say, okay, well, that's exactly
Yeah.
what my bill's gonna go up, because everyone is going to differ, and it all depends on your individual
And we
assessment.
don't know those numbers,
That's right.
so.
Yeah, just to make a point here, what we're proposing is a 6% increase in the tax levy, not 7.
But residential plat is 7. 6% is the average of,
It is the average.
option one is the average 6%, but
Yes.
residential is 7%. Actually, it's 7 point, there's another number there.
That includes the education, Ontario
Well,
education.
yeah, but they have to
Correct.
pay for that.
Yeah.
Correct, that's the total.
Well, in the past, I do appreciate the fact, Ryan, that you did include it, because that gives you the clear picture. And I know in the past, we never did include that in there that I'm aware of.
But Pat, the average is 6% because commercial is 3%, 3.6, industrial is 3%, residential is 7%. The average of that is 6%. That's where the 6 come from,
Yeah.
okay? I mean, 7.08%.
Well, and that's, as Ryan said, some people are going to be getting a 5% increase. There'll be some people with 8.
And there'll be people with 12.
They'd have to have made a big increase in their assessment to get.
Yeah, not that much really. We'll be surprised.
Well, I know I checked yesterday with myself and my neighbor, and mine assessment went up about 3.5%, and his went up 6.
So
So
6,
everybody's going to be a bit different, as Ryan said. It's hard. We can't predict that
No.
individually.
no.
But I mean, yeah, obviously 10 or 12% would be a big kick in the butt for
Because,
sure.
yeah, because it's 7 compared to option 2, which is 9 almost, and option 3 is almost 8%.
Yeah.
And those are big, starting to be big numbers. I mean, for 8 years I've been here, I don't think we had, I don't remember having a big number like this. I don't even know if we had more than 0. But people still went up because the assessment went up,
Yeah.
which we couldn't control. And we had people complaining, and they were right, but
Yeah.
we had our hands tied on those.
I think Ryan hit the nail on the head. If you look at our assessment classes, residential and multi-res take up 84% of the total assessment. So what you have left is about roughly 12 or 13 for commercial industrial. So the residential is picking up the bulk of the
Yeah, I know.
of the tax levy. And you want to load them up with more? If we take it off or reduce the commercial industrial, and that's what's going to happen.
Well, no, that's why I don't want that.
Yeah.
I'm happy with option 1.
Yeah.
And even multi-res, like, I mean, those guys, their tax goes up, but they can't raise the,
They can't raise their rent by
no, because,
3 or 4%.
yeah, so they're stuck in the middle of both things. And even if every option is $1,000 up, so there's not much you can do.
Yep, I agree. Councillor Roman, then Tony.
Okay, thanks. I'm on, alongside with Councillor Morgan. I like to see the downward pressure on the commercial and industrial. I would like to see the numbers for them that are shown in option 2, but I think that puts too much of a burden on the residential. Now, it's something I brought up at the last meeting, and I'm still going to push this, is that we are very healthy with regards to a working capital reserve, and I think that we could lower these rates somewhat by living with a smaller working capital reserve. We're well over $1 million, and that's pretty healthy as far as I'm concerned. Barring any changes, I would have to support the third option, option 3, which is a bit of a compromise.
Yeah, Councillor Roman, I'd have to disagree with you on the working capital being healthy. It's better than it was. But at $1 million, and the fact that HR costs alone, as I mentioned at the last meeting, are about $1.2 million a month, we're not flush in working capital by any standards. That's my opinion. I think Wilf said the same thing.
Yes, sir. I mean, I think I'm paid to be conservative because I can't bring you a nightmare all of a sudden. And that means having a bit of a war chest. I understand where Councillor Roman's coming from. I am concerned about the pressures we will be facing in the future. I'm concerned about the risks that we live with every day. But it's a value judgment that council has to make, and we respect that.
Thanks, Will. Tony?
For several years, we've been trying to put the downward pressure on the commercial and the downward pressure on industrial, and, we've done it. But as a result of doing it, we've added a little more pressure onto the residential and multi-res. And, this year, I think, with, again, an increasement in assessment, residential, certainly, I'm certainly leaning towards the revenue neutral, because I don't think we can put any more pressure on our residential. It would be nice to go lower on multi-res or on commercial. I think as we develop more commercial and hopefully more industrial, we'll see a higher assessment base there, which will sort of take care of itself. But I think with so little commercial assessment, I think trying to go to the provincial average is just puts too much on the backs of the residential. And I think we're not at the provincial average only because we don't have the assessment. I mean, we have nothing, 45 million for commercial assessment. I think the Miscoming Shores might have 200 million. So we have nothing for commercial assessment. Some might argue bringing that number down, bringing that percentage down might entice some commercial, but really people set up in your town because they think they can make money. And that's pretty well the bottom line. If they don't think they can make money, regardless of the taxes, they only use taxes as an excuse if they fail. But if they think they make money, they're going to come to our community. Our community, is under the scrutiny of many, and we're one of the very few towns that is expanding and growing. Lots of investment here, So I know the commercial people are looking at us, but I don't think drawing down a tax rate a wee bit and put it on the shoulders of the residential is the right way, because the people that are going to be working here in those places won't be able to afford to stay here if the residential is too high. So for me, I'm in favor of the revenue neutral. I'm also in favor of perhaps looking at or shifting some of our 217 surplus. I think we've shifted 200 and some thousand onto this budget. There's more to shift if we wanted to bring it lower. I think that's what Councillor Roman was getting at. But I think it'd be nice to also have that. We've never, because of our surplus, it's allowed us to put more money into our capital reserve. And, we haven't been at that point for a long time, and I think it's a good point if we could stay there as well. So I'm going to support, I'm in favor of the revenue neutral option 1.
Councillor Mino?
Yeah, Ryan, a couple questions. All the new construction going on, when does that assessment become taxable?
So MPAC won't give full assessment to any of those properties until there's a occupancy permit. So whenever that happens, I mean, we can see that the structures are happening now, but until our own codes consider it occupied and MPAC considers the building as occupied, they won't give it a full assessment. So, I mean, considering the pace of some of the instruction, we could possibly see something at the end of the year, but I'm thinking probably not until 2019 or later will we start to see some of the new assessment come into play.
So in 2019, we'll have a higher assessment, therefore more revenue if we do the residential.
Again, it's hard to predict right
Oh, yeah.
now, but possibly, yes.
And the other question I had was, how's the collection of taxes going for this year? Because we've collected 50% of the taxables so far.
Yep, so we just completed our last comparison, and I think from this time last year, we're down close to, I can't remember the number. It was like 1.2 million down, so we're doing really good. It's one of the best years that I've seen so far. So it's optimistic that things are going to keep improving, and people are starting to pay. So I think it's a good sign.
And on the uncollectible side of things, is it the commercial or the residential that has more trouble?
Without getting into too specifics, I think I'll go to our base, where our base is mostly residential. So, yeah.
Okay. Historically, this town has had more residential taxpayers, or the burden's been on the residents historically, and I think it's supposed to be 60-40, but the industrial commercial side, it should be paid 60% in a normal town setting. We don't have that yet. Therefore, I'm only inclined to support a residential sort of relaxation on the tax increase because of that fact, because we've been struggling with that for a long time. Also, because we also have a commercial activity that's hasn't been seen for many, many years, I don't see where the commercial tax rate has been a deterrent to this development. So for this year, I would certainly favor a residential, well, I guess it's an increase for everybody, but at least it's reduced in the numbers. And also, if they're the ones having trouble paying their taxes, and we throw that more at them, we're going to have more problems with uncollectibles. So for this year, because we review our budgets on an annual basis, I would certainly support the residential option number one.
I too would support option one. There's such a variance between the commercial, industrial, and the residential assessment. We're not the normal community. I think, Tony, you touched on that. You take New Liskeard, for example. We have 53 million in commercial. They have last year had 140 million. So we're kind of the opposite. They're more close to the 60-40 range. And so that the spread of the tax dollars can be a little more even. I don't think this is the year to try and reduce the commercial any more than we can. Next year, coming on stream, FedEx, a couple of other projects coming on as well, plus residential, several new housing starts, thanks to Kirkland Lake Gold. So all these things will kick in on next year's assessment, not this year. So I would prefer option one and defer doing any cut to commercial until next year. Councillor Morgan?
I just want to further clarify my comments. You're right. I mean, 1 year is not going to change the world. But since I've been on council for 18 years, I mean, this has been, I've been a bit of a broken record on this. And over the years, we've managed to hold the line both on taxes and trying to push down the commercial tax rate. What we've accomplished is that we're no longer the laughingstock of Northeastern Ontario. When I first came on council, our taxes were so completely out of whack with our neighbors that nobody was considering moving here as far as a commercial or industrial tax payer once they found out. So through an incremental process, through holding the line, having a few hiccups here and there, but reducing taxes when we could, reducing the ratio for commercial, we're now in a competitive position with these other municipalities. So that if somebody's looking, like FedEx, to build a warehouse in Northeastern Ontario, Kirkland Lake is now competitive for them to build. So did it all happen in 1 year? No. I just don't want to let our foot off the gas, particularly this year, because I've got some concerns about, what has come to play on this budget. We've got a huge one-time bulge in this particular budget. We've got issues with accounting issue, not accounting issues, but accounting rules that have required, big numbers associated with Tech Pioneer. We've got other one-time costs that we're incurring this year in legals and HR issues and whatnot. So to let our foot off the gas, I mean, next year, if nobody did anything, we would see a huge dip in our taxes. I mean, if the council next year chooses to leave it the same, they're going to end up with a significant surplus. But I just don't want to send the wrong message to the commercial sector now that we're getting traction and that we're getting some results and we're getting people that are coming to Kirkland Lake for purely business reasons, not because Kirkland Lake is the place to be necessarily, or that, like a store, but these are people who are picking Kirkland Lake over other municipalities because of what we've been able to accomplish. When you see it year to year, people's taxes go up a little bit, go down a little bit, but overall, we've managed to really wrestle this animal, in combination with MPAC, readjusting everybody and bringing everybody into to sync. We're not seeing those outrageous numbers for taxes on the higher end homes anymore. Those numbers have come down. So people building new homes, it's not that outrageous anymore. 15 years ago, when I first got on council, it was absolutely preposterous. Nobody was going to build a brand new home because the taxes were egregious. Now they're not. And so to take our foot off the gas at this point, I think is sending the wrong message to the commercial and industrial when we're right on the verge of getting some of these people to come to town. I think we need to keep sending that message and take advantage next year of having those one-time issues removed from the budget and bringing it back into line again. So that's just, I wanted to add that further point.
Any other comments, discussion? So next meeting, we will come back to set these rates. So it's an opportunity for you to think it over. And if you have any questions, obviously Wilf or Ryan are at the helm. I think they know what they're talking about and should be able to answer those questions or any concerns that you do have. Yeah.
Okay, so I have a resolution that's moved by Councillor Mino, seconded by Councillor Morgan. The council accepted the 2018 operating and capital budget of $10 million with a tax rate and ratio distribution option number, and I'm hearing number 1, as presented. Do you want to vote on that?
Do you want to vote? I thought we were waiting till next week on the option.
Yes, this is just giving direction so that they know what to come back with, what rates to come back with. Or did you want all 3 of them brought back? No.
Do you want to set the... Okay, we'll go with,
If we can vote, I mean, I think I know where I sit. I think I've made
Okay.
myself pretty clear. But let's bring it to a vote. I'm
Okay.
cool with that.
Just, I think the process would ask us to direct staff to come back with the ratios that are in line with what we're voting tonight. So we need to have clarity for staff
for them to...
to put together the tax ratios.
Okay, so we will start with this motion with, then for option 1.
2018 for consideration. Okay, so I have it, there's moved by Councillor Mino, seconded by Councillor Morgan. The council accepted the 2018 operating and capital budget of $10 million with a tax rate and ratio distribution option number 1 as presented, and bring back a bylaw to the June 26, 2018 meeting for consideration.
All in favor?
1,
4?
And against. You have to ask who's
Opposed?
and 2. So it's
2?
4 and 2.
4-2.
It's passed.
Passed. Sorry for the confusion. I thought we were coming back, but I understand what the procedure. Adjourn?
So it's moved by Councillor Morgan, seconded by Councillor Mino. The council adjourns its meeting of finance to a regular meeting of council.
All in favor? None opposed? Meeting adjourned at 11 minutes after 5. Take a 5-minute break, and then we'll go into our regular council meeting.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Corporation of the Town of Kirkland Lake meeting of council held June the 19th, 2018. We'll start our meeting, please, with a moment of silence. Thank you. Item 2, we'll have the approval of the agenda.
It's moved by Councillor Morgan, seconded by Councillor Kiley. The council approves the agenda for its regular meeting of June 19th, 2018 as presented.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest? None identified. Petitions and delegations? None. Item 5, acceptance of minutes and recommendations.
It's moved by Councillor Kiley and seconded by Councillor Morgan. The council accepts the minutes of the following meetings. The finance meeting held June 5th, 2018. The regular meeting of council held June 5th, 2018. The public finance meeting held June 12th, 2018. And the meeting to open sealed tax sales held June 13th, 2018.
Any discussion? All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Reports of municipal officers and communications. Pat, you got the 2018 budget speech, sir?
Thank you, Mayor Tony. The budget presentation has been presented and reviewed with remaining tax rates to be set, or have been set as we just went through. During 2017-18, there are a number of staffing shortages and changes which resulted in time delays in the delivery of the 2018 budget. This resulted in a tremendous strain on our senior management team. We knew we had to redo the budget process from scratch and the need to bring in outside help for an independent review to challenge existing methods. Council would like to thank the senior management team and staff for going above and beyond the call of their traditional duties. We'd also like to thank the staff of Ross Pope, Grant Thornton, retired Treasurer Val Goyer, retired HR Specialist Claudette Pullen, and local Chartered Accountant Barry Ryan. Without their assistance, we would still be floundering in this process. We believe that the senior management staffing team that we have now in place will bode well for the future. They're truly a dedicated group who have the administration of the town of Kirkland Lake at the forefront. Initially, this group was instructed to scrutinize everything we did in relation to the budget process, our data, assumptions in relation to the budget process, our calculations, and the reasoning for the past and future. We point out that it is important to understand the town sets the tax rates, and this is multiplied by your property assessment that is set and controlled by MPAC in order for the town to come up with a final tax bill. In taking into consideration, along with the incoming revenues, operating expenses, capital needs, we propose an increase in the tax levy of 6%. This takes into account the assessment increases, which would result in some variances if your assessment resulted in a larger than average increase. It's worthy to note that 84% of the total assessment for the town of Kirkland Lake is made up of residential, multi-residential properties, while commercial industrial makes up only approximately 15% of the total assessment. Therefore, residential and multi-residential carry the load of the tax levy. Surrounding northern communities such as Temiskaming Shores that are of a similar size and population have a much higher ratio for commercial industrial assessment, resulting in a more balanced and acceptable proportionate of the residential tax levy. The total operating fund requirements for 2018 are $15,957,452 plus $901,456 for our share of the capital projects. Represents an increase over 2017 of $562,000 approximately. That leaves the $10 million to be raised to the 2018 tax levy. The financial doom and gloom prediction that was communicated in March of this year was grossly overstated. We managed to reduce, to the help of all the people I just mentioned, these predicted expenditures by over $2 million. We actually ended up at an adjusted surplus position of $770,000 for 2017. Nonetheless, we need to continue the approach that we initiated in the 2018 budget process to ensure ongoing financial stability for the town of Kirkland Lake. The capital budget for 2018 is set for $5.5 million, for which $901,456 is coming out of the tax levy after government grants. Unlike other years, a wish list was not requested. Priority items were the only considerations, of which several were requests from the past two budgets that were deferred or postponed. Some of the highlights of the capital budget, bear with me, I think it's worthy of note. Fire protection, repairs to the aerial truck, second set of bunker gear, building repairs to the aging fire hall, replacing the aging rescue vehicle, and the installation of an exhaust system at the fire hall. All these concerns were highlighted in the recent master fire plan. Under transportation services, this is year 4 of a 5-year paving plan. Also an extension of Archer Drive and the Industrial Park Government Road connecting link to Allen Avenue, accessibility access to physical services, downtown handrails and sidewalk accessibilities and repairs, and as well as Works Department garage relocation. Under Enviro Services, a chlorine dioxide system, caustic soda pumps to improve and work towards elimination of the brown water issues. Stormwater and sanitary sewer tunnel work, decommissioning of the Swastika sewage treatment plant project continues on through 2018-19. Parks and Recreation, the museum sidewalks and stairs replacement of some exercise equipment that had previously been deferred for the last 2 budgets. Tech Pioneer residents, replacing the aging dishwasher assembly, computer upgrades, and under reserves, we did set aside $100,000 of grant money directed to reserve funds. These were dollars received from a previous project that we had already paid out for. Therefore, there will not be a need to increase the tax levy by an additional 1% that was previously suggested during the budget presentation. In summary, 2018 has been the most challenging budget in this term. We have come through a tumultuous year, making us stronger to meet the upcoming challenges in 2019. Thank you to council and staff management and support staff in the trenches. ensuring day-to-day operations were kept up to date during this time of many staff changes and, at times, staff shortages. As well, thank you to our external resources for their unwavering support and commitment to identify weaknesses that were evident at the time. They provided direction that was best for the administration of the town of Kirkland Lake. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Certainly from council, thank you for all your hard work in the budget. And you're absolutely right. We certainly faced some real challenges in 2018. But, you know, here we are halfway through. We've got the budget almost closed next week. So we met those challenges. And so I want to thank as well the people that Pat, Councillor Kiley has thanked for coming together, external and our some retired staff, and certainly the staff that we have now worked long hours to get us to where we are. So thank you very much, and again, thank you, Pat, for that. Any other comments? No? Okay. Okay, Wilf, you're going to come up and talk on 100th anniversary?
Yes, sir. We brought forward to council a report. It's essentially a partnership proposal. A local person has reached out to the mines and arranged to take local gold and made the processes in cooperation with Kirkland Lake Gold to produce gold coins. Some of them are pure gold coins, some are gold plated. What the person is looking for is the assistance of the municipality in processing the administration aspect of this project. Obviously, you're dealing with valuable metal, and you're dealing with a high-profile situation. The person has proposed, and we have taken this to our auditor to work out how can we use the practices and the processes of the town to manage the flow of money and to ensure that the project itself stays on track and is open, transparent, and accountable. That's essentially what we are proposing to council right now, that we can enter into that agreement and help the person produce these coins in time for the 100th anniversary in 2019.
Councillors' comments? Councillor Jamiard.
So from what I read, well, there'll be two coins. One will be pure gold, and one will be, I don't know what to call it there.
Gold plated.
Gold plated, yeah.
Yes, sir.
And is the price decided, or it will depend on?
That I will leave up to the donor. He will be in charge of that. My understanding is that I think they're close to setting a price for the solid gold coin, and as for the gold-plated ones, they will be distributed as per what plans he is working out.
Okay.
We don't say it.
And was there a limited number of each, or?
I believe
No.
that there are, but it may also be impacted by the process itself, because sometimes there's that fall off of the gold. So I can't say for sure that that's what the numbers, but I think it is what it is.
I think
in the
that's an
report.
interesting project. I like it. Thank you.
Councillor Mino.
Yeah, this is a great idea. Wilf, is this a profit-making venture so that the money goes to the 100th anniversary committee, or?
I honestly, there may be donations that go to the 100th anniversary committee. I don't say that they are related to this particular project. We're assessing this one on its own merits.
Okay. And the other thing is, is the town going to secure a few of these coins for the museum?
I would have
and
to
so on?
refer that to council.
Well, I would suggest that we have some, for the museum at least, at the very least.
Definitely, that is something we would work on, but we'll bring back, because I don't know what pricing is in that. I think perhaps Councillor Morgan may be able to speak to this a little bit.
Councillor Kiley.
Yeah, I was hoping for one free, one for each councillor, but
Maybe the next council, sir.
just to clarify and set everybody at ease, my understanding is the donor is basically guaranteeing the sales. If they fall short, he's covering the cost. So there's no real risk exposure here to the town of Kirkland Lake.
That is correct, and we have also, as I said in the presentation, We've walked through this process with our auditors to make sure that the agreement would be firm and that there is no exposure to risk like that.
Councillor Morgan.
Yeah, I just wanted to just address one of the questions that Norm had about whether there's a profit here. And that's, I think, the primary reason why there was an effort to go through the town's processes and structure so that it was completely transparent and that there's no profit motive here. This is simply an effort by this individual to make this incredible opportunity available to the public through a lot of hard work, obviously a fair amount of capital up front, and make sure that there is no hidden profit in the process. And to answer Councillor Kiley, we'll try and make sure that you get a plated one, not a solid one. But in addressing that number, I know that internal discussions within the 100th Anniversary Committee, I know that the number keeps jumping because they keep getting spoken for. So even the solid ones, which obviously are like, $2,000 each. So I don't know where the number finally lands, but it's, it keeps growing. So, yeah. If the town would like one as a souvenir for like safekeeping, like a solid gold coin, they should probably make that decision sooner rather than later, if that's in the cards.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Roman.
I just wanted to say I'm quite excited about this project. I think it's great. And the fact that these coins are going to be minted using the actual gold coming out of Kirkland Lake as opposed to just gold bought on the market, I think is quite special. So looking forward to this.
A very generous effort from this individual. I think it's the third time now he's reached out to us, certainly at the museum, most recently at the rental, and now with this project. And really, we're just going to be an accounting service for him, in a way. I'm just going to wonder, the storing of these, we won't be responsible for storing these, will we?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah, certainly support that 100%. And, while most people probably know who it is, we're not going to mention his name because he doesn't want that. But certainly to this person, we all send out a huge thank you.
So it's moved by Councillor Morgan, seconded by Councillor Kiley. The council approves entering into an agreement to provide administrative services as required to enable the minting of gold coins for the 2019 100th anniversary celebrations.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Okay. Item B, 6.2B is the OPP contract renewal. I think, well, if you're going to speak to this, it's, I can probably, our contract is up. Our contract is up this year. I can say for the last, I think, 3 or 4 years, our invoice from the OPP has gone down each year, and we're certainly supportive of that. The formula that they use for charging the municipalities has changed. I believe it's changed to our favor. And, we talked briefly at the Police Services Board on the contract, and there was no, certainly, there was 100% support for it. And I'm certainly supporting this 100% as well. So, any other comments? Or? No? Okay, that's going to come back as a bylaw. And just for people's, I don't know if we're going to mention in the bylaw, but our 2018 budgeted amount is $2,272,880, and that compares to 2017 of $2,352,444, and it's a 5-year. Okay, we're going to be okay. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Morgan.
I just wanted to comment about the OPP contract. I just want to recognize both the OPP, but also our council and our senior staff that have had discussions with the OPP and argued our case over the years, because the funding model was not always as favorable to Kirkland Lake as it is now. And it took a lot of hard work to get to where we are. And it was both staff and councillors going to AMO, going to, and arm twisting the ministers and getting it to where it is that, you know, we're significantly less. We're only a tick above what it was when it started in 1996. So, you know, I want to thank the OPP, but I also want to thank and credit the individuals that fought hard to get us where we are.
Certainly. Councillor Mino.
Just, well, I'm just looking here, and it says 2.272, that's 2018 budgeted. And in the budget line here, it's 2.233.
I'll defer that to Joanne.
I'm not so sure where the difference is.
I think it's actually in, Hosea can correct me if I'm wrong, you see one amount in for the contracted services, but there may be also other amounts distributed in other areas in that too.
Okay.
Yeah. Or it could be a rebate that we've gotten from last year.
That's possible, because the budget is prepared with the best knowledge we have, but information came in afterwards too.
So we're signing off on 2.23?
2.72, 2.272, yeah,
Which would be like administration stuff.
that's right.
Yes.
And actually, the rebate is more than that, because we transferred some people to the OPP that we used to pay for out of our budget. So it's more, like, really, like Todd said, Nancy and her group worked hard on this, and it shows now that they were doing the right job.
Yep,
That
right
the
back.
civilian police
Yep.
had been transferred.
I can remember when Mary and I was fighting for this
Yeah.
tooth and nail with the OPP, and here we are today.
Yeah, and we still have to fight because
Yep.
it's a big cost.
Yep, it is a big cost for sure.
And for people that don't know, we don't control this, they just tell us how much it is, and basically, that's what it is.
Okay, any other comments? No? Item 6.3 is the, Joanne, you're going to speak on the summer meeting schedule.
So usually we do set the summer meeting schedules a little bit earlier than this. This has been an odd year because of the budget. Just so that you know that we do have a meeting planned for next week, which is June the 26th, to pass the tax rates. But we're also looking for the summer meeting schedule, Tuesday, July 10th and 24th, and Tuesday, August 21st. So we'd like to set those ones as council meetings, regular meetings, and then we will call other ones if they're needed to. So I have a resolution. It's moved by Councillor Kiley, seconded by Councillor Morgan. The council approves the 2018 summer meeting schedule, Tuesday, July 10th and 24th, and Tuesday, August 21st. And other meetings will be called as required.
All in favor? Thank you. Okay, item 7 is the introduction, reading, and consideration of bylaws.
It's moved by Councillor Morgan, seconded by Councillor Kiley, that bylaw 18-092, being a bylaw to set the 2018 operating and capital budgets, be read a first, second, and third time, enacted and passed.
All in favor? Thank you.
Anybody against? Can you ask for me?
Against? Thank you.
It's passed. Bylaw number 18-093 is moved by Councillor Kiley and seconded by Councillor Morgan, being a bylaw to authorize mayor and clerk to execute a maintenance dig agreement with Union Gas for access to land in the Archer Drive area, be read a first, second, and third time, enacted and passed.
All in favor? Thank you. That's carried.
It's moved by Councillor Morgan, seconded by Councillor Kiley, that bylaw 18-094, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a contract with the Solicitor General of Ontario for the provision of police services by the Ontario Provincial Police, be read a first, second, and third time, enacted and passed.
Any additional discussion? None? All in favor? It's carried.
It's moved by Councillor Kiley and seconded by Councillor Morgan, that bylaw 18-095, being a bylaw to authorize mayor and clerk to execute a contract for waste collection, disposal, and curbside recycling with municipal waste and recycling consultants, be read a first, second, and third time, enacted and passed.
Any additional discussion? Councillor Morgan?
There was some information that circulated about asking the contractor to hire other individuals, extra individuals. That's not part of this, right? I mean,
I hope not.
okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Just- I mean, we're voting on how the contract was.
Yes, sir, you're providing direction to staff to negotiate that contract up to the amount that is stated there for, I can't remember, I won't say it wrong.
So it's at a cost
Not to exceed.
4.19 million.
4.4.
Councillor Morgan?
As a point of clarification though, Wilf, is that the amount that was tendered, or is that the amount that staff have decided to set?
I believe that was the amount tendered, right? Yeah, it was the amount tendered.
That's the tender amount, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Any additional? Okay.
Do you want to vote on it? Do you want me to read it again? Okay, so I'll read it again. It's moved by Councillor Kiley, seconded by Councillor Morgan, that bylaw 18-095, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a contract for the waste collection, disposal, and curbside recycling with municipal waste and recycling consultants, be read a first, second, and third time, enacted and passed.
All in favor? Unanimous. That's carried. Thank you.
It's moved by Councillor Morgan, seconded by Councillor Kiley, that bylaw 18-096, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement with Hydro One Networks, Inc. for temporary use of land located at 175 Archer Drive for material storage, be read a first, second, and third time, enacted and passed.
All in favor? That's carried.
Okay, that's it.
Notices of motion. Excuse me. Notices of motion.
It's moved by Councillor Kiley, seconded by Councillor Morgan, that bylaw 18-097, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held June 19th, 2018, be read a first, second, and third time, enacted and passed.
All in favor? Thank you. Councillors' reports. Councillor Mino.
Yeah, just as direction for Ryan. I'm understanding that the TAC Sales Act has changed from 3 years to 2 years. Are we doing anything proactive to warn residents about this change so that they're not caught in a sort of a bad situation? I would suggest that perhaps all those who are in default get a letter advising them of this change. It's, you know, it's going to come real quick. Because as of 2019, January the 1st, as a town, we're allowed to actually register the property. So it might be good to warn them. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Morgan.
Isn't it amazing? That's one of the issues that council has taken to the provincial government for decades, was the drawn-out process. I mean, it doesn't matter in the city because properties, you know, never really come up for tax sale. But, you know, the history that we were dealing with here in Kirkland Lake and this drawn-out process where, you know, once we took possession of a building, it was garbage. And here we are now today with hardly any tax arrears. So we finally get results, and for right now, doesn't matter.
Councillor Shamiad.
Yeah, I would like to say about Tim and Nina Swanson, the great job they did on their property on, well, I don't know if they're their property, but on the property on, what's that place? Beaver Hill. Beaver Hill, yeah. I know for way before I was on council, Todd was there and Norm there's been a debating about this, how to clean it up. And finally, Tim and Nina put their hand together and they worked hard, and it is 100%, oh, maybe 200% better, and they're not finished yet. So just had my hats off to them for their great work. Thank you.
Yep, certainly echo that as well. I had the pleasure of going to the hospital auxiliary on last week. It was certainly a good time. As well, I went to the amalgamation of the two hospital boards, and it was really, they held it here. It was fairly well attended, and it was nice to see, usually during an amalgamation, boards seem to buckle down and protect their own turf, but what a welcoming sight to see the two boards both on the same page, both with the same vision, and really it's for the betterment of healthcare for our region. So I just wanted to compliment both the Englehart and the Kirkland Lake Hospital boards. That's it.
It's moved by Councillor Morgan, seconded by Councillor Kiley. The council adjourns its regular meeting of June 19th, 2018.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.